All right. Hello. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for everyone who's tuning in. I am truly honored and very excited to have a wonderful special guest here with us who is a personal mentor and just highly respected person in my eyes, and a valuable, meaningful person in my life as far as getting me to where I am. And just I would not be the person that I am today without this person who is virtually sitting here next to me right now, a person who's held many honors and has received many awards for different roles and responsibilities, helping communities across the world and writing books which have been translated into different languages I've seen, and holding different roles as chair of multiple universities departments. Person who is now a professor emeritus of the University of the Sciences. And I am just very honored and lucky to have this wonderful guest of honor here to be speaking with me today. So I'd like to welcome fabulous, awesome, amazing Dr. Paula Kramer.
Thank you. What
So
a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much. I am very pleased to be here and very, very proud of Dan, who is an amazing occupational therapist and who I've had the privilege to know and work with over the years.
So Paula, yes, thank you so much for being here. And so I was explaining that, I'm part of some different, groups and support groups, and there's a lot of families and caretakers, parents reaching out with different questions. And, people are having a tough time figuring out kind of how to deal with situations right now, as the role of a parent, dealing with children that might have their own, special needs or abilities, maybe multiple children, just dealing with the different transition of this whole situation, the educational model moving to the home setting, just different factors that are now taking place, and just kind of figuring out, what do we do about this, and how do we do about this, and how do we maintain our own, kind of role and responsibilities, and keeping our own, mind strong. So I have some of these questions, and I was hoping I could just maybe read them to you and just get your perspective, and just see your, your opinion. And I also think it's important, maybe just quickly, just to say that just this conversation is, for educational purposes only also, and just that, any strategies or different things that we're discussing is also just everything should be used, cautiously and at one's own risk. Everyone should, still consult with their own doctor, healthcare provider, primary care physician if they need to. Just that, it's a educational conversation, just in efforts to support one another, and support our communities, and just that, everything should still be kind of used and absorbed in a cautious manner, cautious regard.
Well, first thing that I do want to say to everybody is this is a highly unusual situation. We have never lived through anything like this, ever. And what we have to do is adjust our expectations. We all have expectations of ourselves, of our children. Being a parent is probably one of the hardest jobs in the world. I am the parent of a 23-year-old young man who has learning disabilities. But being a parent is probably the hardest job in the whole world. And here you are, stuck at home with your children 24/7, which is not your usual norm. It's not their usual norm. So you can't expect everything to be perfect. So first of all, lower your expectations a little bit, and let's start focusing on what is working rather than what is not working.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that having a different mindset like that will help you as you progress through your day, or days as it goes.
Right. And that's powerful, that mindset. So all right, so I can read you this first question. So this first question says, Well, it's about just students' self-regulation. So the question says, what should parents know about students' sensory systems and their self-regulation in regards to the change from the school setting to the home setting? So meaning that now they're home all day, they're not, maybe going out to school and to the different things throughout their day. So how are their, systems, their self-regulation, how is that affected, and how does that influence learning?
I think the thing to do is to try to set up a schedule and try to keep it as much of a normal routine as possible. I'm a person who likes to sleep late, and your kids may be the same, but the issue is that you want to keep it like a normal situation. Try getting up at the same time every single day. Try setting up a schedule. I guarantee you, if your schedule starts at 7:30, by 9 or 10, you'll be off schedule.
Mhm.
Don't keep this schedule as a mantra, but keep it as a framework. Keep it as something you want to adhere to. So have the kids get up every day at the same time. Follow your normal routine. If they take showers in the morning, let them do that and then get dressed. Don't sit around in your pajamas all day. If they have breakfast at a usual time and they sit at the table, don't turn on the TV unless that's a usual thing that you do. But if they leave the door at 8:30 to go for the bus, turn off the TV at 8:30. And then figure out things in half an hour increments. Um, they need to move around. Being at home, you want to do either two things. You're either getting cabin fever and you want to run outside, which you can't always now, or they want to just sit in the corner of the sofa, vegging in front of the television or the computer.
Mhm, mhm.
Don't let that happen. Put things in half an hour increments. Now, for some of your kids, half an hour is way too long. So start by expecting 10 or 15 minutes from your child and intersperse those 10 or 15 minutes with something that's sensory pleasurable for them. Could it be jumping jacks? Could it be running around the living room? Could it be if you have a hallway in your house or apartment, doing relay races down the hallway? Or even playing catch with a Nerf ball or a softball so it's not going to mess up your house or damage things? Or could it be sitting with a comfortable blanket around you and just feeling that softness, that uh, comfortable sense? But break it up. When they're getting antsy and they're not able to concentrate anymore, move to a different activity, something that's more physical or something that's more comfortable for them. I have a friend who has an older teenager who is autistic, and I was always taught that hugs are great because they calm the central nervous system. So my tendency when he got very tense about something that was going on that I couldn't control, I went to hug him and he said, no, no, need space.
Mhm.
This is how he's learned to deal with it. So listen to your children. Gave him space, 10 minutes alone, where he cuddled on the couch and then came back and said, okay, let's go back to work now. And
Mhm.
he was able to do it. So take your cues from your children. And as a parent, you know your children better than anybody else. I sent a friend a video the other day. I came back from almost a mile walk with my dog,
Mhm.
and I walk slow. So she didn't get the exercise she needed. I came home, she ran laps around my living room like
Mhm.
she was at a racetrack when we came home. That was her self regulation. And then she went into the corner and just kind of laid down and she was calm for a while. Take your cues from your children. If you get 5 minutes of good attention, that's great. If you don't get five, if you get 10 minutes, even better.
Right.
You can gradually start to increase that time, but don't expect too much right at the beginning.
Yeah, and I really like what you said about that expectation. You know, we were talking a little bit about it before, and I have to bring it up again. I feel like that's such a huge part of it. You know, like this question is really saying, you know, in school throughout the day, our senses are being filled with different things we're seeing, different ways we're moving, different things we're touching, different, you know, activities we're participating in, and then here sitting at home maybe without access to all of those things, those senses, you know, aren't getting that information, we're not getting that input, those needs aren't getting met. So, you know, as a parent, maybe a parent can be, you know, trying to figure out a routine that this has to work, this is what we're doing today. And like you said, if we make a routine, a schedule that starts at 7 or 8, you know, an hour or two later we might be off schedule. But that lowered expectation that, okay, that's okay, you know, that's okay to fall off schedule. You know, we're hoping to stay on schedule, but you know, this, like you said, it's a new situation
Right.
that, that no.
And bringing back to that schedule, then, if you can, is great. You know, also, I think we're going to get to this a little later, but schedule in time that's for yourself as a parent.
Mm,
You may need to work now, and that may be a time for a video or something else.
right.
So be a little bit flexible. But I can't quote the article, I don't have it right here. But when I was learning to do online education, I was told that not to put up a video that was more than 10 minutes long, because students in a classroom may be able to attend for a half an hour or 45 minutes, but students online tend to attend, if it's a talking head particularly, only for up to 10 minutes, and then they get antsy.
That's good.
So, you know,
Good
that's the
information for
situation
me
we're
also.
living in.
So no, I was saying it's good information for me also. I'm
Yeah,
making videos that are way too long then.
right. And then we try to put up PowerPoints or pictures or things like that, diagrams, because that change in scenery helps bring your attention back.
Right, right. So, and I guess throughout the school day, throughout a regular, you know, a day where we're not staying home, if we're not used to the homeschooling setting, that we're having those changes in scenery that are kind of getting our attention, all those different changes, right? Where at home we might not be. So interesting. Okay. So then, and that brings us to our next question, which is how important is movement, movement breaks, sensory strategies, which you spoke about a couple, you know, whether it's something that feels soft and comfortable, or you need to move around, get up and do something different, see something different, right? Kind of addressing all those senses. So how important is movement, movement breaks, and sensory strategies as far as promoting regulation to increase that participation and performance in the home setting, in the home education setting?
Movement is critical. We can't attend, we're not used to sitting still. It's not our normalcy. So follow your child's lead. When does your child need to get up, move around, do something different? Um, Jumping jacks, putting on a yoga video if you have it. A lot of the streaming services now have quick exercise breaks or yoga sessions or meditation. Anything that just gets them moving is good, because movement helps us get our attention back.
Mm,
Then we come back, we're tired, we sit back for a little bit and take a break. Even if it means, and if you're in a situation that allows it, walking around the block for a time. And when I walk around the block with a child, one of the things I always did is jump over the cracks in the sidewalk.
mhm.
Jump over. Jumping helps build our muscle tone, and it helps jogging our movement senses in so many ways. So if you're walking down, jump over the cracks in the sidewalk, run to the corner, and then meet your child at the corner. Anything that makes things a little bit different helps increase muscle tone, helps get your energy going. And again, follow the needs of your children, and follow their leads a little bit, but increase the idea of their movement
Mm,
as they're going through. If you have to stay inside, try jumping jacks, try, like I said, relay races, try seeing if there's a video that says, can you keep up with me? Or how long can you jog in place?
mhm, mhm.
Let's try to increase it every day a little bit, so that they have a goal, but a goal that's fun. It's not a concentration goal. It's not a school goal. It's not like focusing on one thing.
Right, right. And like you said originally, that expectation, keeping that low. So even if a parent makes a plan that, today we're gonna do, like you said before, 5 educational activities, even if we're only able to get to 1 or 2 of them, not to focus on all the ones that we were not able to do, not to focus on the ones we couldn't do, but having that lower expectation that it's okay that we at least got to these ones, this one
Right.
educational.
My niece has 2 children, and she was complaining to me the other day that she's so glad she didn't become a teacher because she's found that that's the most difficult thing ever. She has one child who wakes her up and says, can we do school now? She has another child who has some learning issues, and she says, Mom, not today, not today. So if she can get her to sit down and focus on something for 5 minutes, she's happy.
Right.
So that's the expectation part. And if you have multiple children, they're different, and they have different needs, and they have different um, interests, and you have to let them be themselves.
And then I just have a question. So you're talking about schedule and making that schedule, and even if you're falling off schedule, just to keep trying with that schedule and listening to our children's cues and what they need, and just figuring out kind of how the day should be kind of concentrated to them. Should that schedule remain the same, or I mean, does it depend on every child individually, their age and their own needs? Um,
I think certain things should remain the same, and other things don't have to. I think the time you get up, doing your morning routine to get ready, that should remain the same every day. I think bedtime routines should remain the same every day. But in the middle, shake it up.
yeah,
Um, and it also depends on the parent's needs. If this is a parent that has to work while their children at home, they may not have the flexibility of shaking it up.
right.
But I think that when the parent has to work and the parent has to focus, a conference call or something like that, then that's the time to give the child downtime. That's the child to allow them to do FaceTime maybe with a friend.
Hmm, hmm.
Um, you know, kids can't play together right now. Playgrounds are shut down. Allow them to do FaceTime. I don't want them on the computer all day long, but maybe there's an educational video that they love at that time. Depends on the age group of the TV. Oops. It depends on the age group of the children. There's always something like Daniel Tiger on that they can relate to. Um, Sometimes there's learning games or letter games
Right.
that they can play. Um, I think it's a great time for families to get together and play board games, old-fashioned board games. And this is something that gets to a question that I know you have later on your list, but I'm going to do it now just in case.
Yeah, sure.
Um, uh, One of my favorite games was Monopoly, but little kids can't play Monopoly. So a while back, I was in a place that we were kind of cooped up because of the weather, and there were kids and parents there. So we got around the table, played Monopoly, and the parents teamed up with the children so that everybody wasn't playing as themselves, but playing as a team.
Oh,
And
okay.
so the parents showed the children, should we buy this property? Should we not? It was a discussion. It taught them the game. And at the same time, it was loads of fun. There was a lot of parent-child interaction, and it worked very well. There are board games for young children like Candyland that are fine. Get older, you can get to Sorry and Risk and things like that. These are games of my childhood. Hungry Hungry Hippos was a great one for little kids that my son and my nieces loved to play. So with the harder games, if you have older children, let them pair off with the younger children and teach them how to play the game. It engages everybody. Everybody has a good time with it. Nobody feels stupid. It allows the older children to feel superior and like a teacher, allows a younger kid to engage with an older child, which also makes them feel good. So multi-generational kinds of things are good right now. Family activities. Let the kids get involved in making dinner with you. Is there something that you can give a child to do so that they learn something about meal preparation? You know, learning about your activities of daily living skills, just as important as learning your specific educational skills. My son always loved baking with me. I like to bake, so making cookies for him. Let him choose what kind of cookies we'd make. Let him do the mixing. Let him crack the eggs, you know. These are things they don't always get to do. You know, you can still handle the oven yourself if you're not you don't have an older child doing that. But doing all the other things. And then later on in the day, being able to say, hey, I made these.
Right.
You know, those are also good skills for them to have, but it's a different kind of learning. And it's an important kind of learning.
Right. Right. No, I think that's amazing advice. Yeah, because like we're talking about the expectation, right? The expectation might be to maintain certain educational skills and, you know, learning everything in school. And, you know, this home transition is different than school. So kind of adapting to the current situation and learning different skills and giving everybody different roles and responsibilities to engage everybody together to, you know, bond and spend that time together, and younger children learning from older children and bonding with them, and older children learning responsibility by teaching younger children, and everybody today. I think
And remember, using measuring cups is mathematics.
right.
You know, you have fractions, whole cup, half cup, quarter cup, things like that. So
Right.
you're getting involved in a lot of that. And when you're mixing something, you know, going like this, you're using your muscles. And if it's a tough mix in the beginning, it involves more musculature. So that's a movement break.
Right. even
So,
even carrying, you know, heavy things to and from the sink, carrying,
right,
you know, a pan or I guess a bowl, uh,
right.
right? A bowl that has material in there and all that, you know, input into the joints is probably a very calming experience also, just getting that input in.
Right. And of course, eating the things you make afterwards is the best reward, you know, and being able to say, I made that,
Right.
you know. I have a great picture of my son eating a chocolate chip cookie that we had made together.
Mhm.
And, you know, the look on his face was priceless to me. So think about those kind of things. You know, you have to make dinner. I have to admit that my culinary skills are stretched a little bit. It's been a long time since I've made dinner every single night
Mhm.
and not going out at least once or twice a week. You know, so thinking about what you like and what you like to put together, you know, do it with your kids. You know, let them have input into it. You know, yeah, you're not going to have macaroni and cheese every night,
Mhm.
but if that's what they want, let them help make it.
Right. 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 All right. Yeah, that's beautiful. Awesome advice. All right, so this next question is an important one too. So this next question says, what are recommendations for a child that is having meltdowns and tantrums during home education and will not attend or participate in the virtual learning home education? So I guess if we're making our routines and we're, you know, listening to the cues of our children and trying to get them engaged, but our children are just, they're not reacting well to it and they're just breaking down, having those meltdowns, tantrums, just they're not able to participate. You know, they're not able to get involved in those
Well,
activities.
This is the most difficult question because every parent hates a tantrum and a meltdown. Do what you would normally do to try to calm them. Don't say, well, Mr. Dan is on the computer right now. You have to listen now. No, don't expect that. Do whatever you would normally do. If it means a hug, if it means cuddling up in a blanket, um, do what you would normally do, and then see if you can redirect them back. Even if you get 5 minutes from them, that's good enough. Um, as I mentioned, my friend whose son has autism, he's very compartmentalizing things. School is school, and he's missing school very, very much because he loves school, but home is home. And when he saw one of his teachers on the computer, he said, not in my home, not in the home. And he was very, very upset with it, wouldn't make eye contact. So see if you can get him to make eye contact, to do something fun, maybe before the lesson. But figure out even if you can get a little time. So do whatever you have to do that normally calms your child down. Do you give them a timeout? Do you cuddle them in a blanket? Do you say, can we do it 10 minutes later? Whatever you would normally do that now. And try to make it as comfortable for them as it possibly can be. You know, they may get used to it after a few days. They may not. But meltdowns are the nightmare of every parent. And don't think that you're disappointing the teacher or the clinician or who's ever on the other side of the screen, because they know that this is not a normal situation for kids.
Right.
And so, you know, a timeout is okay. In many cases, if you can get them to attend just for a few minutes, that's good enough to allow them to continue.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
5 minutes on, 5 minutes off.
Right.
You know, it's okay. Don't expect too much. And at first, it's not going to seem like normal, especially if it's a time thing. Like you say, do this now. That's going to be hard, especially for kids with special needs. We don't want to make it too difficult for them.
And I think especially, it all ties into how we were talking about before about those expectations and just kind of, listening to our children, and that we can grow from there. So if the expectation is do this work now for 30 minutes, then that demand might be so overwhelming that can contribute to the stress or tantrum, meltdown. And just, sorry, were you going to say something? I was just.
Yeah, think about basic conditioning. If you can stay with this for 5 minutes, then you'll get a reward.
Right, right.
Yesterday you stayed with it for 5 minutes. Let's see if we can do 7 minutes today.
Building.
And then you'll get a reward. And then you can build it up a little bit.
Right.
Try small increments and be very aware that those small increments help out. And we do know that positive rewards work. Don't do negative rewards. They don't tend to work as much, but think about what they like that you can give them as a reward.
And even that reward system ties into the expectations too, that,
Yes.
oh, we have to work for 30 minutes and we did 5. So instead of saying we didn't do 25 minutes of work, this is so bad, this is terrible, saying, okay, well, we did get to focus for 5 minutes, and maybe just even using that, as maybe conversation. So what did we learn in those 5 minutes? How were those 5 minutes? Was it interesting? Or if, of course, depending on, age and just individual levels of students, just education, knowledge, their own level, developmental level, but just kind of building up from there instead of focusing on what we didn't do right, focusing on what was done, instead of focusing on what was not done right, focusing on what was done right.
And focus on the positive, not the negative. It's too easy to be negative right now. So focus on it. I have a niece who posted a short video of her two little boys. They're 3 and 5, I think, doing a yoga section with them. And the 3-year-old, and her tagline on it was, "Charlie lasted 3 minutes." You know, that was a big deal for a 3-year-old.
Right, right.
You know, he stretched for 3 minutes. That's all you can expect sometimes, but focus on the positive, not the negative. It's too easy to be negative right now.
Right, right. All right. Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. And then, so this next question is the one that you touched up on already. So this just asks, what are recommendations for parents with multiple children? Some may be having their own needs, some with, might have special needs, or multiple might have special needs. And as far as, balancing between the multiple children. So you were talking about working together, a lower expectation, setting roles, and giving responsibilities for older and younger children to work together. Is there anything?
That all works. The only thing I had to say to parents is that most of your employers know right now how difficult this is if you're working from home. And the fact that you have to take out timeouts to do things, they need to understand that. Don't be negative if you need to take breaks, but also try to make your child understand that you have needs too. That if you have an older child who can help out a younger child, let them do that. But understand in your schedule, this is mommy time. This is dad time. We have to do this. Or mom's going into another room right now so that she can focus on her work.
Right.
This is your time to run and jump and whatever you allow children to do in your house.
Right, right.
Use that as their movement break time. And again, giving an older child responsibility for a younger child is helpful to both.
Yeah, and that even ties into our next and final question, which is just what are recommendations for a parent guardian to balance their own work schedule as well as their children's needs and the educational school demands, and meanwhile dealing with their own stress and emotions. So not only just balancing our children that are older or younger or have different needs, but just balancing everything else, our own, mental health, our own work needs, our own different roles and responsibilities as a parent or a worker, as well as taking care of ourselves.
That's tough. And I think that I made an assumption a little earlier that your employers understand this. Some do. I'm sure that there are some that don't. The bottom line here is just maybe in your environment, setting up a corner for yourself or a room for yourself that's your work room. And when you go in there, maybe say, this is do not disturb time when I'm in here. Obviously, you can't do that 7 hours a day. But to give yourself a space, to give your children spaces to do different things if you have that luxury. I know that my husband's very fortunate to have a small office right off site of where we live. He goes there every day to work. I work at home and I stay with the dog. And I don't have any little children here at this point. But you have to kind of figure out what works for you, and you have to make it in kind of small increments. Maybe have a conference call at 1 o'clock, so that's 1 to 2 o'clock where people are doing other things. But try to establish some boundaries. When I'm at the table, I'm working. When I'm in this room, I'm working or sitting in this corner. Make that a time for sensory time. Maybe you don't let them cuddle up with their blanket all the time during the day, and that's a bedtime strategy. Let them do that during the day, or put on a video at that time, or see if they can FaceTime with a friend, or is there a puzzle that they can do, or a toy that's a manipulative that they can do so they can work on fine motor skills. during that time. You know, I don't like to go back to the computer all the time, but for some of the time it's good.
Right.
So look at the resources you have at home. I'm not saying run out and buy them, but you know, you can always use pots and pans as stacking tools,
Right.
measuring cups for teaching some math, you know, things like that, that are toys you have in your house, kitchen objects you have in your house that they like to play with, that you don't always allow them to play with. Make that the time that they use during your work time.
Right, right. And you know, I'm doing research for the videos that I'm making of activities that you can make with home items. And even just typing it into Google or something like Pinterest, you know, there are hundreds of ideas of just using home items to, like you're saying, either do stacking or using tongs to, you know, grab and do something, different arts and crafts. And they have some really, really cool ones. I've seen string tied, you know, from one side of the wall to the other to make like a Mission Impossible, you know, obstacle course. Some really, really fun ones. So again, depending what people have at home, but you know, just allowing that kind of creativity, a little bit of a change in that educational and instructional model right now.
A rice bucket that hides different objects in it and have them looking through to
Right.
find that. So it's very sensory. It's a lot of fun. It works really well. Another thing that I was taught recently, because I had broke a small bone in my hand, was that if you took a bucket of rice and then you took an empty bucket, you put them close together, but the idea of grabbing the rice and moving it from one bucket to another, trying to not drop as much, to drop as little rice as possible. It's a great hand exercise. It works really well. It's fun. It feels good to do it. Clay, Play-Doh, things like that are always great activities. Coloring even, let them use their imagination. You know, one day you can color within the lines, the next day you can color outside the lines and be as creative as you possibly can.
Right.
There's so many ideas that are on the internet for you to do. Parents, your imagination and things you remember from your childhood are the best example for you to use with your children at this time.
Yeah.
But don't be afraid to look online. There's lots of good ideas to do. Setting up a tent in the middle of the living room with chairs holding up a blanket.
Right, building a
Go and
fort.
hide. What?
Building a fort or
Yes.
couch cushions or a blanket and chairs, right? That's
Right.
a good one. I love that.
You know, many years ago when my son was little, we had bought a number of Disney videos, and one of them had the back of it to buy a with 3 tabs of videos. You would, for just shipping and handling, you would get this huge cardboard box, basically, that looked like a house. Well, it had all kinds of characters on it, and it was just white and black. It wasn't printed, so you could color in the characters. You could hide in the box. We had so many hours of play from this silly box. You know, if you get a big box delivered, they say the virus can stay on it for 24 hours, so leave it alone for 24 hours. But then give it to your children to decide what they want to do with the box.
Right, right.
You know, children love to hide in things. You know, take it into a corner. Have them find hiding places around your house to play hide and seek. All kinds of things. Just use any bit of imagination that you have.
Yeah.
So this is a rough time for everybody. And I think we have to acknowledge that and not expect too much, and be grateful and positive about the things that work, even if they're for little bits of time, and just go with that. And most of all, don't expect too much of yourself, of your children, and see what you can, you know, what you can make come out of this. It's probably going to end up to be, there will be some precious memories in it.
Hmm.
Don't make it about fighting with your child to watch a video.
Right.
That's for schoolwork.
Right.
Make it about what's the good time.
Right.
Make it about um, baking cookies together, or planning dinner together, or spending a fun time having a pillow fight. That's another sensory thing,
Mhm.
as long as it doesn't get too wild, set the boundaries.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. And just like you said, that I feel like that expectation, is such a huge part of it with everything we're talking about, setting the routine, setting time for yourself, trying to give children their educational needs and their, bodies, physical needs of moving and doing different activities, just all of these different things, anything that parents want to try, just always being aware that that expectation is that if it doesn't work out exactly as planned, that's okay, that's okay as well. And just you've tried it, you can see what might work, what might not work, where you can try more, where maybe wasn't very, wasn't working very well, and maybe we should stay away from, and just not having, such a high level of expectation, because that can cause a lot of just stress that's not needed at this time. Instead, looking for those positive memories like you're saying, I think that's, really beautiful, beautiful advice. That's really powerful advice.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for
Yeah.
inviting me to do this. It was a great pleasure. And parents at home, do your very best. That's all you can ask of yourself. If something doesn't work, go on to the next one. Don't spend your time focusing on the negative.
Right. Right. Thank you so much. That was beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Round of applause. Thank you, Paula.
And thank you, Dan, for doing this.
My pleasure. All right, everybody at home, you
Bye
heard it.
bye.
You heard the advice here first. All right.